Hey, welcome to another Just 15 Mins. My name is David. Hello, how the heck are you? So, we've got a bit of an intro one today. I'm probably going to be pointing at a lot of things rather than explaining and showing exactly how some of these things work. But it's all about AI agents and agentic frameworks or agentic systems. So, lots of buzzwords there, which we can break them down. And by the way, the the YouTube, the YouTube is full of obviously stuff. So I don't know where I'm trying to go with this. I think what I'm hoping to do, given my day-to-day job and background of integration systems and things like that, I see these sorts of things because when you look at an AI agent or an assistant, as they're sometimes called, um, then the idea is that obviously they can be used, from a chatbot. That could be on a website, WhatsApp, whatever it might be, text messages, and things like that. But the point being is that that is the interface, I suppose, and it doesn't have to always be that. That's the big thing. Yes, you need some way to initiate an activity, but that initiation doesn't have to come from just a keyboard or voice. It could come from an action out of another integration system. So it could do things like, and this is just a really out there sort of thing, it could look at a CRM system and say, you've not bought stuff for X amount of time, or you've gone over your credit limit. And fair enough, you can send out the usual things like, notifications, things like that you can do. But you could also actually have the AI agents and agentic system or agentic framework go through. And by the way, the reason why there's a system there is that it isn't necessarily just one AI agent working, and we'll get into that in a bit. These things can be chained together and run in parallel and work together to achieve certain outcomes and things like that. But so this could be something like where it doesn't just send an alert, it might go and check other bits of data that may need to build a fuller picture before you actually get in touch with the customer. And you might then find that you're then getting in touch with the customer to say, look, you've gone over your credit limit, but what about this if you do that, and all that. You've got all these other conditions. And certainly if you're saying, well, you haven't bought anything for a while, you could look at other analytics basically. So it's a little bit more than just your if then else, send this. So, and of course it all ties in with the large language models. But the reason why I haven't put just say ChatGPT there is because, again, all of this sort of like framework can be used with actually different, not just different models within like OpenAI, because as you know, there's GPT-3, 3.5, 4, 4.0, there's the new one, which is the reasoning model that's come out, the O1 preview. So there's all of that, but you're not even you're not even constrained to just OpenAI's models. You can say, well, for this bit of work, it might be better off using Gemini from Google or Claude or a multitude. There's Olama. There's so many. So you're not tied in just to one AI model and AI model environment even. Okay, so that's where we can go, and of course they can chain together. You can have agents that are very specific with certain activities, and when you then pull these together, these don't have to be just sequential. They can run in parallel. They can group together. So this AI research team is literally that. It's a collection of agents that can work together or work on its own, but it can actually report back to other agents, and then that other agent. So it's got reasoning in there as well. Now, I know a big thing that's just come out literally as the time of this recording is, as I mentioned, the OpenAI GPT for o1, it's not quite GPT-5 yet, is it? That has got reasoning. So you need I think at the moment anyway, you need the pro version subscription to try it out. But it does go through a reasoning process. So it sort of does a little bit of this. But either way, with this sort of agentic framework concept, you're not tied just to that one model or just to that one company. And you can chain these things together. You've got tools, so you can actually integrate with other systems, basically, or other bits of data. And that brings me on to knowledge bases. You can look at PDFs, knowledge base articles, databases, wherever that data resides. So we'll get into that a little bit as well. So that's what we're going to have a quick look through. I'm thinking of doing like a webinar or some sort of workshop to actually delve deeper, because there's a lot here. It doesn't have to be rocket science, but we'll see how that goes anyway. But it will be an interesting thing to point out some of the aspects, mostly from a business perspective. So from a technical developer deep dive, maybe I'll get into some of that if I feel sort of up to that and haven't got the imposter syndrome too much. But it's really about being aware of what you can do from a business perspective. Small, medium, large businesses, it doesn't matter. It's just being across these sort of tool sets and what is available. So that's what we're going to jump into, in at least on a touch point basis with this video. Okay, so first of all then, what is an AI agent? And there's lots of definitions of different varying degrees, but generally speaking, an AI agent is a software program that can autonomously interact with its environment, collect data, and perform tasks to achieve specific goals. Okay, these agents make decisions based on their perceptions and data, aiming to produce optimal results. What does that really mean? Well, they can be used in various applications, customer service chatbots to even to self-driving cars, which I'm not going to get into that. I think if I did anything to write anything to do with an AI agent driving a car, you wouldn't want to be in that car. But anyway, so an AI agent is a component that can actually, dare I say, sort of think for itself, or at least given the parameters that you're providing, is to go and say, this is my job, I'm going to do this, here's my goal, that's what I want to try to achieve. And that's where you can then have this interesting sort of mix where another agent can check those results, for instance, and say, well, from the parameters that I've got, that doesn't look fully complete, go and retry. So it's got all that type of mechanism. So an agentic framework or system is where it's basically, again, they're operating with a high degree of autonomy. These systems often involve multiple agents, to collaborate and solve complex tasks with minimal human intervention. However, as you will see, you can certainly have human intervention. So, again, like any sort of workflow process, you can absolutely say, here's some information, I need a human to go and review this to say yes or no, or go back and retry, or things like that. So you can absolutely build in the human workflow aspect. Okay, so they can do planning, decision making, they can adapt, so it's really about gluing all those things together. So when we talk about an agentic framework or system, that's what it's doing. And again, what I mentioned in the intro is that each AI agent can be a completely separate AI model from a different company to do specific things. Those AI agents can work in tandem, in parallel, to do something, or they can work sequentially to do something. They can interact with tools. A tool could be make an API call out to a CRM system or an ERP account system, or anything like that. A tool can be go search the web, go and look at this, go and look at that bit of data. And of course, behind it as well, it can take advantage of RAG, which is the retrieve augmented generation, which means ultimately when you do your LLM like GPT search, it's usually going on their data. The RAG aspect, the retrieval augmented part, is it can be your data, and you can be very picky, choosy about, do I only want to look at this data, or should I look at this data in conjunction with the wider picture? So there's all those parts, but the great thing is they can work together, they can work independently, they can chain different sequences together. So it's quite an interesting and exciting time how this might work. So that's what we're going to jump into. And there's what I've got for this one. There's a lot more than this, obviously, but I've picked two different aspects of the sort of agentic systems. And one is more user-friendly. I don't doubt, should I say, that they could be used in business, but they're latched into an environment that someone provides. So Zapier is one example I'm going to be looking at. There's another one which is quite interesting called Agentic. It's a fairly newish setup. And a lot of these technically, when you look at them, and it's not a bad thing, I'm not having a go at them, but they're using a lot of things like OpenAI or Claude or Gemini or all these other AI systems in the background, and they're a bit more than wrappers. That's very unfair to say, but the idea is that they're giving a user the ability to bolt this stuff together, usually in a low-code environment. And the next one level down is some of the open source, mostly, frameworks, things like AutoGen from Microsoft. LangChain is another very big one. And there's a few others, Crew AI, we're going to have a quick look at as well. So let's jump into the first one, which is the more user-friendly low-code approach. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a light touch, literally just me pointing at things, but I promise if you're interested, I'm going to put a, dare I say, not a course together, probably like a little workshop or something, to try to go through a bit more in depth and structure it a little bit more than me just, panning around the browser everywhere. Anyway, all of that aside, this is meant to be just 15 minutes, so I'm going to stick to it. So what we've got now is the more user-friendly low-code approach side of things. So there's a couple of there's a lot of these out there, but there's a couple that sprang to mind basically when I decided to go and have a look at this. The first one is, if you're familiar with Zapier or Zapier, I call it Zapier because I think it is that, isn't it? Zaps. So that's an automation framework. It's been around for some time now. It's quite massive, from everything from personal automations to working in business. It can get a little bit pricey though when you're dealing with a business environment with their premium connectors and things like that. But everybody's got to eat. So anyway, but what they've done, and they've built, I'm really impressed with Zapier, I must admit. They've built, of late, they've got things like Zapier Forms, where you can build UIs and input forms, and they've got Zapier Tables, where you can build databases and things like that. Not unlike Notion and things like that, and Dataverse in Microsoft World, and I'm sure there's millions of others like Airtable and lots like that are out there. But anyway, sticking to on message here is that these things that I'm about to show you are, like I said, low code, easy entry points, but therein lies one of the big problems sometimes is you're building something in someone else's framework. Now Zapier, I don't doubt, are not going to go away anytime soon. But how portable are these agents? Can you serve them up in your own website, for instance? And that's what I was going to say, is that Agentic, which is a fairly newish one, And it's really unfair to say it's just a wrapper around things like OpenAI, ChatGPT, because it's more than that. But this is a good example where this allows you to build agents and knowledge bases, but you can do it quite visually, and it will do things like create a WhatsApp bot for you and a chat bot and generate the code for your website. Um, I'm always a little bit aware that if you then put a lot of effort and energy into a company that are essentially creating like wrappers around something else, like what's the longevity of that? And again, it's not been unfair. I'm hoping these people stay around for a long time, but what happens to your business, your effort, your work, if for whatever reason they close up shop? Okay, so that's one thing, but straight back to Zapier at the moment, and I'll come back to the other one shortly. I created an extremely basic agent. Okay, I'll go into config mode. I gave it a name. I can give it a description, and I gave it the bare minimum of instructions. Now, the more that you're specific, the better the responses are going to be. Okay. Now, in the background, I can't remember off the top of my head if this is using ChatGPT in the background, possibly. I think it is, because I had to put in an API key, and we'll get to that in another story. But anyway, I've got an instruction for the agent. You're a weather master. You know everything about weather, as if. But anyway, the idea is the action that it's going to use is I created an action called Get Current Weather, where I am in my location. Now, I've got thousands of different apps that I can connect into. You could literally, you want to pull data from Salesforce. Yeah, you can hook into Salesforce. You can hook into, as it mentioned there, there's HubSpot, there's Notion, there's everything possible. Now, as I say, with Zapier, there are some premium connectors into like high-end sort of systems, but most of these are all available here in this sort of like AI assistant world. Okay, there are behaviors as well, but we'll get to those another time. Data sources, again, from a knowledge base perspective, what happens if you want to upload your own PDFs, hook into your own database? Now, at the moment, this is fairly limited, but I'm sure this is going to expand massively. Again, we've got things like Zapier tables that I mentioned, brilliant. HubSpot, Airtable, for the custom database type stuff. Notion, of course, Google Sheets. So you can plumb these in to augment, and that's where we're getting into RAG, retrieval augmented generation. You can start to say, well, use this data. Okay. So without much ado, I'll just type something in. It is raining. What can I do today? Well, it's actually bright sunshine for once in the UK, but never mind, it's usually raining. So we might as well ask the typical sort of question. And you can see it's going to recommend some indoor activities. Now, if I had added more actions in there, it could do things like look at my local area about events that are going on and recommend some of those as well. So that's where it can, this is extremely basic, but you can see where this can sort of go. Okay, so very quickly, the other one, like I said, the Agentic system, it's in beta at the moment. This allows you to create an assistant. Now it hooks into a couple of different LLMs in the background, one of which is OpenAI ChatGPT type stuff. Okay, and like I say, I think it's great. They're doing a lot of value add bits to this, but underneath that, it's and it's meant to be to save you from getting into coding. But with OpenAI, the people who brought you ChatGPT, you can actually go to the platform.openai. You don't need to have a pro subscription, okay, and but you do need to add some funds for your API. So an API is application program interface, where you're connecting via code usually, but you do need to have some credits there. So I've put things like $10 on there, and to be honest, I've been testing things for the last month, and it's used, I think, a cent or two. So it's not expensive when you're playing around. Obviously, keep a watch on that if you're going to start building stuff for production. But there we go. Everybody's got to eat, haven't they? So the idea is you can build the assistant. Now, Agentic essentially connects into that. In fairness to them, they make it very easy. You can build a knowledge base very easy, but underneath it, it is doing this sort of work. Okay, and like I said, it's no disrespect to those companies. I'm not picking on Zapier or anything like that, but it's that longevity thing. Like, how long are they going to be around? I hope they're going to be around for a long time. But there's obviously quite a lot where they're building on top of something else. They could potentially disappear, and you're left with, well, I've got all this investment. Where do I go? Whereas I'm a little bit more, well, go to the source basically, and get into where that is. And OpenAI are not going to go away anywhere soon, not with their billions of investment that they're looking for. But who knows? Who knows? Anyway, very quickly. The idea is that an assistant is, you can build it without any code. Now, to put it on like your own website or get it hooked into like a chat bot and things like that, you do then have to start putting it together. That's where things like Agentic come in. They will generate code for your website, give you a WhatsApp sort of integration, and all of those lovely things. So it is worth checking that out. But the core bit is, I've created something now in my day job. I work for a company called Codeless Platforms. So we've got a product called Task Center. Well, it's not called Task Center now. It's called BPA, Business Process Automation. And it's a middleware integration automation engine. Okay. So what I've done is I've got some publicly available white papers that I want to tie in with the RAG pattern, the Retrieve Augmented Generation, based on my data. So it's using the LLM, but it's also augmenting it with my local data. Okay, so I've given it, again, very minimal sort of instruction to the agent. Okay, I've decided which model I'm going to use. Okay, so this is ChatGPT 4.0 Mini. We know already that we've got the latest one out, the 01, where it'll do reasoning and thinking and all that type of stuff, which is brilliant. But right now, I'm using ChatGPT 4.0 Mini because, as it says, it's an affordable, intelligent, small model for fast, lightweight tasks. So brilliant. In fact, what I'm about to be doing and showing, I could even use one of the older models. There would be no real issue. Okay, but I've decided to use the Mini, and also I've got the ability to do file searching. Okay, so I've added, I think there's about 30 odd, 40 different PDFs there. Okay, you can hook these up. Again, this is where the programming side would come in, because you can store those in a secure bucket on Amazon A3 or a storage on Azure or wherever it needs to be, or even locally or in your own environment. Okay, there's also a code interpreter. We'll leave that alone for another day. But the other one is functions. Now, I don't have any functions at the moment, but you can hook into your own systems via an API call. So one thing I'm going to be doing in possibly a workshop that I'll run or a webinar is show things like there's a data API framework in Microsoft where it'll generate an API of your database. Okay, so that would be one way you can interact with your own data as well. So not only just file-based data, which can be CSVs, PDFs, whatever, spreadsheets, you can actually call out to other systems. That other function, by the way, could be Salesforce API, HubSpot, Notion, anything that's got an API, or indeed BPA, because BPA can take calls. So it could actually, and this is where it gets really interesting. The initiation doesn't have to start with verbal or text input like a chatbot. It could start with an event from another system and trigger AI agents. This one's only one agent, but as we'll go a bit further down the rabbit hole, we can tie these together. I've got a few other things in here because we're using GPT-4o Mini. I've got response formats only going to come back with text, but if that was like if I had another model looking at DALL-E for images or something like that, or audio, because we can do text or give instructions and get voice sort of out from that, or vice versa. There's lots of other things you can do, and you can play about with the temperature. We'll get to that a bit later, but the point being is I've uploaded these, like I say, I've got these files essentially. Okay, so I could do things. Now this won't make a lot of sense to people who haven't used BPA, but if I say can I connect to SAP HANA with BPA. Now we know we can, but again, a lot of people wouldn't know that. I can run that. Let's see. Okay, so it's going to go away. There we go, and it's coming back with a little bit of information. I can then say, how would I configure the connection? Okay, now bearing in mind this is all really basic stuff that I've fed into it yet. I haven't really done any fine tuning. Okay, so you can see it says, yeah, we can definitely connect to SAP HANA. It gives a few options there. It's using my sort of files that I've uploaded, but also with the wider internet, and that's where that augmentation is coming in. And you can see there, look, I've said, how would I configure it? Okay, it goes through several things, you know. Now I don't know the validity of all of this, by the way, but the point being is this is going through the you know, the database level, but we do have like a connector. So there's some connection things in there that I could start to ask. Again, I've done no fine tuning. I've done no sort of like detailed sort of instructions at the moment. But that's the idea. You can start to build these things up. So whether it's things like Zapier, you know, where you can build, you know, very, very simple things. If you use something like the AI assistants in conjunction with something like Agentic, and again, there's a few of these services around, they can start to build you like an end solution, and we'll get to that in maybe another follow-up to this, because the final thing that we've run out of time today is to go through some of those open source where there is a bit more programming involved, and I'm talking about things like AutoGen from Microsoft. Okay, again, the benefit of these is that you have the code, you control the code, and AutoGen, for instance, has got some really nice. Let me have a look there. Where have I got it? I did have. There it is. You can run this locally. This is running locally on my machine. Okay, with some Python engine, but it's running essentially AutoGen Studio, which is in beta at the moment. You don't have to use the Studio. You can use just pure code. And in the next one, I'll show you how we're configuring that. There is a couple of others as well. LangChain is another really big one. Again, they've got like UI capabilities, but they've got the framework that's very solid. And the only other one that really jumps out for me at the moment, and there's a lot of these, well, actually there's two more. One is Crew AI, where you can define the agents. It's got an open source version. Okay, and then of course we're into the world of things like Azure AI Studio. So we're going to do a bit more of a deeper dive into that, and I'll probably cover that in a workshop/webinar. And certainly do some follow-up videos, because we've run way over as usual. But AI agents, quite an interesting concept. Stringing them together, they're a little bit more than just your average chatbot, that is for sure. So that's what I've got for this time around. So take care, and I'll drop some links below if you are interested in maybe a more structured workshop to go through some of these aspects. Then I'll possibly get some feedback and see if that's something that people are interested in. I'm going to build that together to make it a little bit more of a structured way of understanding some of this and how to actually get some real value. There's a lot of technical stuff out there on the web. This is more from a business perspective, how you can actually start to leverage this in your business. So it's really as much as a business overview as it is a technical deep dive. Okay, take care, and we'll catch you on the next one.